A few months ago, or actually last month, Silver Futures did a video on Mike Norman versus Peter Schiff. For those of you that don't know, Silver Futurist tries to be unbiased when it comes to analysis, so I go to his channel, right? Secondly, he has come on my channel in the past as well. Last time I think must have been late last year, early this year. I don't remember. But anyways, he gets into this interesting debate or discussion about Mike Norman versus Peter Schiff. Mike Norman is an MMT economist. Peter Schiff, Austrian school economist. And we know that they used to be on Fox News Business on Saturday mornings. They used to debate each other. Mike Norman was laughing in the face of Peter Schiff. Schiff ultimately won that battle when it came to the real estate bubble. Now, for the past few years, Peter Schiff has been wrong. He was predicting higher interest rates. He was predicting the debt market to collapse, hyperinflation, this and that. Same thing I've been saying. So I've been wrong in the short term. He's been wrong in the short term. Now, what Silver Future is saying about Mike Norman is that he's been right for the past few years, right? He was saying that Mike Norman understood the bailouts. Although no one wanted to see them, we could get away with it. And there's no negative consequence for having this. Or there's no major negative consequence. Unlike what many individuals are talking about. Well, one of my problems that I have with this thesis or this statement is that from my understanding of economics, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And what Silver Future was alluding to is that, hey, Mike Norman's saying that there's nothing wrong with keeping interest rates low. And in addition to that, it is moral for the United States to do so. It is not amoral, unlike what many individuals in the Austrian school camp are saying. But let's just think about it this way. Like I said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you look at it closely, right, you keep interest rates artificially low. What does that allow the government to do? The government is allowed to spend more money than it otherwise would have. So that means we see these programs like Obamacare, we see the military spending continue to be where it is right now. The list goes on and on and on. So you have this welfare/warfare state. But here's another part which is quite interesting and no one really talks about, is that, yes, you do have the government spending all this money. If you had interest rates where the market rate should be, the government would not be able to finance the government that we have right now. And the government's way too large as it is. Back in the day, they didn't have all these government agencies and bureaucracies. But only because of the central bank, we have been able to have this. And it actually helps out big businesses more than the average guy, contrary to what we hear in the mainstream media. See, this is the Fed balance sheet article by Doug Short. And he goes on by saying, with the title, The Fed Balance Sheet, What is Uncle Sam's Largest Asset? So if you were to take a pop quiz, right, and you had 4 choices, without looking at online resources, do a Google search, and before you do that actually, what line item is the largest asset on Uncle Sam's balance sheet? U.S. official reserves, total mortgages, taxable receivable, taxes receivables, student loans. The correct answer, as of the latest quarterly data, is student loans. That's right. Student loans are the largest asset on the balance sheet of the U.S. government, or of Uncle Sam's balance sheet. That is very disturbing if you want to look at it. See, here's the deal. If you want to look at what has allowed us, or what has increased over the past, I don't know, 5-6 years, it's government credit, right? Private sector credit has been deleveraging. I could show you that as well. But if you want to look at it from 2007, 2008, while the economy was sucking, right? these loans skyrocketed from 150 billion to 825 billion. So there's a note over here. The loan balance has risen 614%, most of which dates from after the last recession. Okay? 600%. If you want to look at from the tech bubble to 2007, 2008, we could just do a quick extrapolation of the, not extrapolation, just a calculation. So like 115 minus like 63-ish, or maybe let's just do 60 billion. So a 92% increase over 7 years. So let's just do it over an annualized period. Hit Control Plus if you can't see what I'm doing right now. So roughly a 13% increase in the assets of the balance sheet of the government when it came to student loans. So now if you want to do from the past 7 years an annualized increase in the student loan balance sheet account of the U.S. government, the increase is what is it, like 87% on an annual basis? Is that even accurate? That seems outrageous. That's insane. So for those individuals saying that this is moral, then you have to look at one fact. The amount of loans on the balance sheet of the government's rising. Student loans are rising. So just imagine if we had a debt liquidation situation in 2008, right? You would have had a situation where interest rates go up, there'd be less capital available, there'd be a pain for a year or two. But however, we would see less government loans go out to students, and that would be perfect if you look at it, because if you saw what happened 50, 60 years ago, people didn't take out student loans to go to college. Now they do. And what ends up happening is that's going to be creating a huge bubble. It's going to burst in our lifetime, or many individuals are going to get bailed out, and unfortunately a lot of people are going to get screwed over. They're getting screwed over now, right? Once they sign their life away and go to college and are $100,000 in debt, unfortunately. Or the story that I showed you yesterday. I'm going to show you total credit market debt outstanding at the Federal Reserve. It's the Z1, or specifically the L.1 credit market debt outstanding. And what I want to show you is that the federal government credit has been expanding the most as a percentage wise. So this is like 12.7 trillion. This is part of our national debt for debt that is not held by other government institutions, because there's a portion of our debt that is not held by institutions, that is not held by the public, long story short. So 12.7, and I could talk about that in a different article or different video. I've done in the past too, just as a FYI. So let me do the math. 12.7 trillion minus 9.385, 9.385. So if you want to look at it, the federal government spending has gone up 35% since 2010. I'm not looking at the 2008 numbers, and I could get that information as well. Long story short, we see the total credit market debt outstanding increasing to 57 trillion. If I look at the data correctly from 2008, it must have been around 54-ish, right? There's a contraction in around 2009, 2010, which I could pull up. So long story short, most of the credit that's expanding is coming from the government. And the government credit, unfortunately, if you want to look at it, what's keeping these interest rates low, right? What's that doing in turn? Well, that's basically screwing over the young folks. And they're going into more debt to go to school. Not that I'm against going to college, right? If your parents get paid for it, go ahead, right? Make my day. But if you're going into a large debt, now you have to ask yourself, is this worth it? Are you getting a high-paying job or a decent-paying job when you graduate college, right? Are you going to a 2-year community college to try to save on costs and save your debt load, and then go to a 4-year, and then look for a job? I mean, that may be a better strategy for some it may not be. But anyways, going into debt on the government side, some people like Mike Norman and the MMT guys may say that, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, what's wrong with it is that this provides more access to student loans. And we know that this is a bubble. We know that students have to pay much more than they otherwise have. I mean, I talked to some individuals who are 10 years younger than me in college. They're 18 years old, and they tell me that tuition's like $50,000, $60,000. But they're getting some grants, they're getting some aid, this and that. But $50,000, is that worth it for undergrad? Think about it. Unless you're going to an Ivy League school and getting your money's worth right after school. I mean, this is insane. And for those individuals saying that going into debt is great on the government side, well, think again. Thanks for listening. Talk to you later. Bye.